Okay.
Hello and welcome, all of you
Hi.
Pauper Commander players out there. I have an illustrious guest. I would say he's a little bit of a hard get. Not really. I don't know. I don't know if people just haven't asked you. Is the deal? I have with me Plant, aka Who the Hell, widely
That is
known.
me.
Yeah, widely known on the interwebs for his role in the Pauper Commander community, and this is part of that
Oh,
ongoing series. Oh, where'd you go? And he disappeared just like that. We had him,
yeah, I'm
and
a
we
phantom.
lost him. So, Plant, hey, thanks for coming on and doing the thing
Yeah,
with me.
gladly. I've actually seen some of the interviews already in my recommendeds, and I was like, oh, damn, I want to do an interview.
Yep,
And I didn't know you were like going around asking people in the rules committee. So I was kind of excited when you messaged me.
sweet. Yeah, I'm systematically going. There's not really an order to that list. Um, the idea, and I think most folks know by now, like the idea was to kind of get some easy gets. I'm not saying Alcadron's easy, but Alcadron's easy, right?
Yeah.
So, kind of setting the tone. I was just on with them. It's actually dropping in the morning. So for continuity's sake, the four person interview that I recorded earlier this week with Derek, Scarecrow, Alk, and myself drops in the morning, and then this one
Hmm.
will drop the Wednesday thereafter. So everybody has the Marvel universe, in sequence.
All
So
right.
wanted to kind of start off the new year with kind of recapturing some of that old glory, and then move in strong thereafter with you. So I guess I won't ask too many like specific, like, in fact I don't have anything prepared. But I
Likewise.
So before we get into like histories and your love of the format and that sort of stuff, I will kind of start, since we are on that continuity train. I will start by asking you a similar question that I asked the other three previously this week, and that was that where do you see the format going this year? Where do you want it? Well, I guess those are two different things. Like, where do you want it to go? Where do you see the format going this year, 2023?
That is, hmm, that is an interesting question. Um, I So honestly, I have no idea where it is going because I also haven't been paying attention to any other formats. I don't know how actively anything else is being played and what the implications are.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would like Pop ADH to become more popular, but definitely not as popular as Commander. Because I
That,
feel like with its noticing, Commander
yeah,
made it like too busted and like not. It breaks the creativity in it. So I would like, and Pop is kind of the safe space where like if you have a 4/4 on the board that has meaning, like there's that means something because you have to think about attacking someone,
mm-hmm.
stuff like that. In normal EDH, you just, well, there's a 4/4, I deal 20 damage to everyone, doesn't make a difference.
Yep.
um but so when I've been traveling, I've been trying to bring the format a little bit to people, like talk about it, bring some decks. And it would be nice to have more places where you can just pick up people that are already there that are playing.
Mhm.
So like some more popularity, but like not have it mainstream to be ruined in the process.
That's actually a fairly common answer among Pauper Commander players, is the fact that we love this format. We want people to enjoy and the format to grow and the enjoyment of that format to grow, but not too much. Let's draw it back. Let's draw it
Yeah.
back a little bit with that. Okay, cool. That's a good icebreaker. So let's do the when did you jump into Magic, and then your journey into, through Magic and into Pauper Commander and that sort of thing.
All right. All right. So I started playing around Kamigawa block. Bunch of classmates just gave me a pile of goblins and mountains and said, "You play Magic now." Like that is literally what they said.
You play Magic.
And at first, yeah. And at first, I didn't like I didn't brew much. I just had this one deck, and I didn't understand things. I just played. And then a friend of mine stopped and gave me this big cardboard box with his old cards. And that's when it kind of popped off. I built like 4 or 5 decks out of those cards and just invited friends over to play. So I tried to just handed everyone decks that they wanted to play. But I don't know, at some point just stopped playing for a few years. And then around when the commander sets with, I think it was 2011 with like Prosh and Deravi and stuff, a friend of mine was like, "Hey, I want to play Commander." So we picked up back there with Commander and just slowly grew back into the format. The city I live in, Osnabrück, has a fairly active Commander scene. And I also played some online on Cockatrice. And I don't remember if I played Pauper first or Pauper EDH first, but I found like a Discord channel and just was kind of intrigued because I did like the deck building always, just with the limited resources I had. And it kind of stuck. So that is the format, like love of the format part. Somewhere I'm very bad with dates. I believe it was around 2018. I texted the person who was in charge of the PDH Homebase site at the time and said I wanted to get involved. I wrote one article on Stormchaser Mage. That is it. And back then it was kind of a weird mix. Like everyone openly discussed, even though some just had I just had the role of a writer.
Yep.
And because I didn't really find the time and like I like building decks, I didn't like writing as much. So I felt bad for not putting in the effort. So I became more and more silent. And at some point they did like kind of a cleanse of the rules committee and were just like, okay, let's just get everyone out there for now. But then I think, again, not sure when that was, like roughly a year ago, I just realized Pop ADH is such a like my favorite format by far. I try to spark it everywhere I am. We have a play group now here as well, or 2 kind of, and I just wanted to get involved again. So I asked if they have a slot, and they voted on it, and I'm very happy to be back.
Yeah, it was an interesting time. That opening. That's how that opening came about, which we will not discuss, but
right, yeah. I joined just after some drama, which I have no idea what happened.
Drama in the PDHFC? I don't believe you. No, that's good. So you've been around long enough to kind of see some changes in the format itself. Were you around the format the time of I call it the Great Reconciliation, where the rules from Paper Popper and Online Popper kind of merged, and I think we were ahead of that curve in recognizing both digital and print cards.
I believe I did not like I got into Pauper by the time it was already solidly merged. So that is not something I noticed. Like actually I watched the previous podcast, the previous interviews, and when you mentioned that, I was like, this is very interesting. I actually didn't know all of the roots of Pauper and Pauper ADH in that sense.
Sweet. So we're both relative, forgive the term, newbies, to
in a sense, yeah.
Because we've shown up and everything's already pretty much taken care of. The by and large, the internet landscape has been, well, I can remember in recent times, like the last bit of homogenization where, all of the wikis and all that stuff are reporting the same information now, which wasn't always the case. I do recall a little bit as a player researching the format, there being a bunch of information everywhere. So
Yeah,
That's no longer.
I feel
That's no longer
I
the
feel
case.
I feel kind of lucky to have joined. I think I joined just after they did this, because I remember when I texted to join the PDH home base, the explanation I got was kind of, we are trying to combine all of these notions. So I feel like I just joined right when they were done with that.
Right. Okay. Everybody wants to know. This is the question.
Okay. The question.
Casual or competitive?
I would say I'm more of a casual player. I do. I enjoy giving myself weird stipulations and then optimizing around that. So I have like kind of a competitive side, but I tend to get bored of building the same deck over and over. I like breaking the color pie. I want to have games where everyone is able to do what the deck does. And like if you win on turn 3, that's nice, that's good for you. But like nobody else did the thing that they wanted to do yet. So that what's the point? At the same time, though, sometimes if you talk about it first, if you're like, okay, let's play competitive now. I have 2 combo decks. And those games are really, really interesting because, again, everything matters. You destroy Mana Rock on turn 2, those kinds of things. And it's just a very different vibe. But in general, I play EDH and Magic generally to relax and have a good time. So I guess more on the casual side.
Right on. So you made me actually think of something that in a context which I never thought of before. So my background, I used to teach hand-to-hand combat techniques to Army personnel. I've got a lot of time on the mat, training and all of, optimizing my techniques and that sort of thing.
Right.
So a large part of that influences what I consider to be fun. I tell people all the time in the server, like, hey, that's a great deck idea. I can't wait you to wait till you kick my face in with it. I phrase it in that because I want the challenge of you coming at me your hardest, and I want to
I see that.
succeed or fail. And even I think we're the perfect in that regard. I think we're the perfect forum for rewarding failure, if that makes any sense. I want you to
yes.
I want you to fail fast, and I want you to fail first, and I want to get all the gritty stuff out of the way right away, so that way we're starting to build on success, and we're
that's how you learn fastest.
Yeah. So to that end, what do you play a lot of are you the like Sheldon Minery, not to name drop, but Sheldon Minery touts the commander format as a bastion, a place of solace away from competitive play. Is that something like you play competitively for different formats, and you're like, oh, Copper Commanders, where I draw the line, that's where I'm going to relax and chill? Or what is your, I guess what I'm asking in a long way, in a circle, is what influences your style of play?
It certainly isn't other competitive formats. I play very little. I have one modern deck. I have one, maybe 2 or 3 60-card pauper decks. So like I have those just in case I feel like it, but usually for these competitive events, I get bored of the same deck after 3 rounds. So for me, Magic is for the most part about creativity, finding interesting interactions. The fact that each game is different than the one before. And I guess that is what informs most of my choices, both in deck building and in playing, if I can. So an example, for example, is Ghostly Flicker and Cloud Shift. They say you flicker a thing, you bring it back under your control. If you threaten a creature, you gain control of it permanently. And these kind of weird interactions, like I like to be the guy. I like to think of things that nobody has thought of before, or like find new interactions and ways to use things. And yeah, I always like grin to myself when I find something really nice. That's just sometimes I have a few things like I want to build this or I want to build this, and then 3 weeks later these thoughts combine in my subconscious, and suddenly I have a deck idea. And yeah, these moments.
So any favorite color?
I used to be strong in Is It. I have the Prismari sticker on my laptop, and yeah, I used to identify with Is It a lot, but I've branched out, and I feel like I built some mono white decks and mono red, and found card draw in those colors.
Yeah.
I because I like to break the color pie. I'm less restricted now in that sense. I guess 5 color good stuff, but it doesn't really it doesn't really matter. And it changes too. Like I've been when I started out with PDH, I was a lot more on the competitive side. Each of my decks had a combo in it. Then I actually scared one of my play groups away from the format, unfortunately, because they just played what was the term? Living room floor tier.
Yeah.
Like they just had their cards laying around, and I was like, well, Storm Chaser Mage, give it things, kill you turn 3, and that wasn't fun for them, so they never touched the format again. So then I tried to build more chill and casual decks, and a friend of mine started playing, and he had this. I still generated a lot of value, so he just accumulated more value. And then at some point, I think around the initiative 2, I started getting more into creature combat. Like I have not been able to build decks with win conditions for the longest time. And in the past year, I started to be like, hey, maybe I should actually not only think about what this deck wants to do and how it generates value, but also how it ends a game. Yeah, the last few decks I built were lots more creature heavy. So it's like I notice these phases that I go through, and it never stays in one lane necessarily.
You're actually making me wax a little nostalgic. So I used to play casual Commander, if you believe it. And I used to love mono white, actually. Like Angels, right? That was definitely my
right.
jam. Yeah, so I was living in Arizona at the time, and I was fortunate enough to have a play group that was like, with regular like 6 to 8 people that would show up. So pretty large group. And it was I had a table that would sit 10 people. So we would do the great epic games where you have 8 people playing, and the games would last like 4 or 5 hours. And
oh yeah.
Of course, I don't smoke, kids, but I smoked cigarettes at the time. So did everybody. So did everyone else that would play. So we would do one turn that would usually take like 45 minutes, right? Because everybody's talking and all that stuff and socializing. Then we'd go outside, and I had a basketball goal outside, and we'd smoke and like, play horse, a short game of horse, and then we'd finish up and then come back inside and then do one more turn. And then, so what you made me think of is like, there is a value on just the style of camaraderie that is associated with the style of play. You know what I mean?
Definitely, yeah.
So like, I feel like in these, and it's hard for me to assess now because I've played infinitely more games online than I have in person for PDH. So, but like even sitting in person playing, PDH or Commander, it's like, okay, I'm coming, I'm coming, here it is, can you stop me? There's a lot of like, shit talking and that sort of thing.
Right.
Because you got to razz your buddies, right? So there's a lot of that, and I imagine there's probably not a whole lot of that going on at a casual table, unless there is, and then maybe I'm missing something.
It's interesting because it sometimes goes with the flavor of the deck. So the friend I was talking about that started playing and then like kind of got the ball rolling as the next person to also push PDH here, he built a Cardor deck, the black-red guy that basically goes everything, because he was sick of the board states where everything was just clogged up. And he was for some reason, whenever he played that deck, he started shit talking in a weird way, like why don't you leave open blockers? What's wrong with you? Like,
I gotta meet I gotta meet this friend. I think we see
yeah, and it only comes out in specific decks though, like in and I noticed that too with other players. I don't have examples right now, but I noticed like depending on the deck they play, the personality kind of shifts towards that deck to some degree. So it's like a little bit like role playing too. And that's always interesting. So you do have those interactions. It's not that aggressive socially, so to speak, but it's
I can see that.
Yeah, so, you do have the back and forth.
So back in the early days, like I played Feldergriff, you know, like Blue Fort. So it's like, no guys, no seriously, I'm just hanging out. You know, we're pizza, baby. We're having beer and pizza. We're just hanging out, you know, that sort of thing. So I can definitely see that. Of course, this coming from a former Kalia player too. So love Kalia the Vast. Yeah. So yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Also, you reminded me with your. I also had those long games when I started out playing EDH. We had a play group with, I believe, also between 4 and 8 people as well, and we had those games that would last until 2 a.m.
Oh yeah.
And I loved them to bits, and they actually helped me a lot to get a much better understanding of the board state, because you couldn't see all the cards across the table. So I started like memorizing cards. I started being able to just have one quick look at the board and immediately know what's happening. And weirdly enough, I there came into this like the sense of fairness. So like when someone missed a trigger, or like nowadays too, when someone misses a trigger, I will tell them. Mm-hmm. Oh, you forgot to draw 2 cards. Draw 2 cards, and like nobody else might tell them, but I will, even if it's not beneficial to me at all. Mm-hmm. I just want the state of the game to be correctly represented, because I would feel bad if I won because the person didn't draw the 2 cards. Mm-hmm. And I think this is also part of what pushed me a bit towards, or nudged me towards wanting to be in the rules committee, because I want things to be in order, so to speak, like have the correct processes of you could say this is my German side. Everything.
I wasn't going to say anything.
I'm saying it so you don't have to. But yeah, I always enjoy this. And there's a certain kind of safety in this. Like, you know what to expect. You know exactly how the rules are. And as someone who loves breaking them, it only makes sense if they are rigid enough to do so. Like this, the loophole doesn't exist if you could do it anyway.
You and I are brothers in this. I am absolutely a rules person myself, but only because I like breaking the rules. So how do you know where you're going to step over the line if you don't know where the line is in the first place? So, kindred spirit. So
wonderful.
We haven't had. Well, obviously, we haven't had anything this year, but we don't know what this next set is going to deliver upon us. Which I think, spoilers, they've already released some art and all that stuff in the last couple of days. So I think.
You mean for the Phyrexia set?
One? Yeah.
Yeah.
So at the time of recording of this, we're just before All Is One spoiler season. So just reflecting back a year ago, I think we had Neon Dynasty, and there was nothing really all that shocking about Neon Dynasty, I think.
Yeah.
There was some channel stuff that was interesting.
Reminder that ninjutsu doesn't work from the command zone.
Right, because it has.
Oh yeah, actually, the channel cards for the format were very interesting. I love this crap. There's a 2-card combo with Careful Cultivation and Pilipala.
Yep. I experimented with that quite heavily with Shardless Agent.
Oh yeah, that's cool. I was thinking about building a 60-card version, but I'm not familiar with 60-card format, so I wasn't sure how to do it. It's just in my backlog for sure. So yeah, actually I enjoyed Kamigawa a lot, especially as someone who started with Kamigawa, and just the flavor is hit home very nicely. And I think
Do you draft? Do you draft a lot?
I enjoy drafting. These days I don't really have the time because also most drafts are on Friday, and Friday nights is also Commander night. And between the two, I prefer Commander.
Right.
Starting in April, I hopefully have more time because I'm going to finish my studies if everything goes well.
Ooh.
And yeah, then
become
drafting more is definitely.
Become a professional man with a job, huh?
I'm actually already working at the site. This is why I'm taking so long.
Sweet.
But I was thinking about picking up streaming, maybe creating some content both for PDH but also for other things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. By all means, if you want any pointers, or I mean, I'll give you a whole lot of list of stuff not to do.
I'll take that list gladly.
Yeah, because I'm always that's one of the things Ryan and I are talking about in the background. So Ryan, my partner with the YouTube venture and Discord and all that stuff. We want to. I don't know how we want to do it, but we want to like create somewhat of a starter kit for people who want to create PH content, because that's the thing. We are not an island. I never want to be considered the focal point for the end all be all, for anything, whether it's competitive or YouTube or any of that stuff. Like, so
yeah, that's also what I noticed in your interview with Alcatron. That was really nice. Like, just all of us are happy for more PDH content. So this is just this whole, like, it's kind of a family in that sense. I really liked it.
Absolutely. Well, the one thing that's not largely apparent, but was covered in, I think it was covered in the PDH Pod episode that I recorded this week that actually came out today, the date of this recording. The environment, because I played CEDH, competitive EDH, a lot. That's kind of where I honed my chops for competitive 100 card singleton, and the culture, the environment, the groups, all of that, the politic, all of that was just so. There's no real good adjective, like singular. I mean, I can run out a list of profanities to describe it, but even that wouldn't even come close, I think. So I kind of made myself a little bit of a promise that if I had the opportunity to help spearhead not resurgence, but the surgence of a format, that I would do everything that I could in my power to eliminate those things that create marginal situations for folks. Like, I don't want anyone to ever feel bad because they want to play a specific commander,
Right. Yeah.
Because the ultimate test, especially in my lane, well, so speaking what I know of casual folks, like, absolutely play the thing that you want to play because it makes you feel good, or, you're having an experience with your pals, like, I'm not a cop, like, do the thing. But from a competitive standpoint, like, what wins? If you win the game, so now now we can get into the finer points of that, of like, how we're winning the game. Can we turn the screws a little bit to increase your odds and chances and stuff like that? Absolutely. But there is no set convention for how that happens, so
in a way I feel like pop ADH makes you a better player. For some, like, at least I would say pop ADH can make you a better EDH player in a sense, because as I mentioned before, these board states that that are important. Like, if you play a 1/1 turn 1, I don't know, and you attack each turn for the first 5 turns, that is much more of your life total than it is in EDH. Like, it feels much more important because life totals is not something that changes so drastically. And like these because there's not such intense resource generation, not these flashy cards, all of your plays kind of become more impactful in the grand scheme of things because everything is a bit less impactful. And I feel like it teaches you a lot about how to manage your resources, how to do attacks, and it's much easier to see in this context than when you're getting tormented of hellfire. Anyway, so
yeah, generate infinite mana, torment of hellfire. GG.
It doesn't even have to be infinite. That's the thing. Like in EDH, you can easily just generate 60 mana in a turn without going infinite.
That's fair.
And that's just not happening in Pauper much.
That's fair. Yeah, I think another reference, because I've only recently thought about, I try not to think of regular Commander, but then given everything that's happening in the, because for those of you who don't know or aren't part of Twitter, speaking to the folks out there in the interwebs, so in December, Sheldon Minery expressed an interest into looking at Pauper Commander, and for those of us on Twitter, we started getting really excited because just the mere mentioning of our format by that person brings a certain heightened view or visibility. There's the word I'm looking for to
right.
format. So given the injection of that attention and all of that stuff, I started to kind of really looking at regular Commander and thinking about their card quality versus our card quality anymore. So you said earlier about I'm trying to remember your exact words, but you were talking about there are very few things in Pauper Commander that give a lot of advantage, and I think the two things that did give the most advantage, we banned those.
Yeah.
So in that regard, they are printing so many cards into regular Commander that give you, it's not necessarily a 1-for-1 exchange. You're able to get multiple effects off of one card, and we do have some of that, like a jack-o'-lantern is a good effect where you get multiple uses out of the same card, and with the disturb and stuff like that. But those cards that provide card advantage on their own aren't so overly powered that they're warping and bending the game. They're giving you a tool in multiple forms to use to actually help sculpt the tone of whatever effect that you put them in. So comparatively, like a Torment of Hellfire, a small torment is game warping. A large torment is game ending.
So yeah. Just one. And I've won with a fireball, but I had to do jump through a lot of hoops to win with the fireball.
So that's kind of where I'm seeing. I say it all the time. Pauper Commander feels like Commander from 15 years ago. It feels like OG Commander.
Yeah.
So if you want to reminisce in that spirit, and actually have to work for your win, right?
Actually, exactly. Yeah.
Do some work. Then this is the format. So okay, you wrote at least one article.
I wrote exactly one article. I did write a draft to talk about the rulings for backgrounds.
Yeah.
But it sounded a bit too corporate. Like I was just like, okay, these are the points. This is what's happening. And then I read Alcatron's article, and I was just like, this is poetry. This is amazing.
Yep. So okay, so we have one in, one out. The next one's coming out next month. No, I'm just kidding.
Not next month. Starting in April, I might. I wanted to do some deck text for a long time. I have one deck that I will never disassemble, I believe. It's a Sandstone Oracle.
Yes, tell us more. Tell us more.
Yeah, Sandstone Oracle. So 7 mana, 4/4 flyer. When it beats, you choose another player, and you draw cards equal to your difference if you have less. And it's very nice because it can hold its ground. Like even in stronger pools, if there's no infinites, it's at least a solid underdog.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's kind of a threshold, like if your opponent is playing a weaker deck, like for example, that doesn't draw a lot of cards, then you also don't draw a lot of cards. So it like fits in every pool. You can, if you get into a new group, for example, you can always play this. You can give this to a new player because it's colorless cards, so it's not that complicated. But still, there's like very interesting things you can do, like with Scare Tiller and Warped Landscape, ramping that way.
I've been looking for a way to break Scare Tiller competitively.
Yeah, Scare Tiller and the looting mana rock from Kamigawa, very nice together. The network terminal.
Yep.
Because you discard a land. Oh, wait a sec. Is it back? It's back.
Yeah.
You discard a land to the terminal, and then you next turn bring it back with a Scare Tiller, and you can just loop this over and over as long as you have lands. There's the 2 artifact recursion things to get all the Tron lands online if you feel like it. So like it has all of these tiny little things. I had this deck for I think 2 years now, and it just slowly tweaked it over and over. And like generally, if you ask me what my favorite deck is, it's probably one of the recent ones I built. Mm-hmm. But this is just one that is always also towards the top of the list.
Sweet. Well, thinking about your recent building got me thinking about and kind of having this renaissance of new cards, some like more powerful cards. Because fire design, everybody, welcome to the new normal. It's kind of like the partners in regular Commander, how that is somewhat of a turning point that we can look back on and think of, okay, so this is where, we had this many options, and then all of a sudden we have this many options, and the ceiling changed, right? So I think in the last year or so, we're probably going to look back and look at it at 2022 probably being the year in which the switch was, the fire was turned on, and we got more options available for, you could even say that with some of the stuff in 2021, but 2022 and Baldur's Gate
again, that's and
that sounds like a sweet deck. You'll have to give me the do you have it in a Mox Field or something like that?
Don't have the current version, but I can type it in. Like I can give it to you after we're done talking.
Sweet. Yeah, well, I'll just drop that in the description, and we'll have.
Oh yeah, gladly.
That sounds pretty sweet. Pretty sweet.
On your point of the fire design and the new cards, I actually have mixed feelings about it. For the same reason I had them in EDH, because we also get a lot of strong cards that are pushed for Commander at common rarity, because Commander Legends is a draftable format, and I kind of noticed like a good portion of a new deck is at least tempting to just use the new cards because they're better than what the old ones did. Like you used to have 1 mana, when something dies, it comes back. And then they gave it a plus counter. Then they gave it +2/+0. Then they gave it death touch or something. Like they're like, oh, did this break Pauper 60 cards yet? No, so we can push a little more.
Yep.
And I really hope they understand that there's at some point this like there has to be kind of a ceiling, because one thing I really liked about Magic is that over these years, sure, there has been some power creep, but it's been like slow enough to not really be noticeable. Now in the past 2 years, it's just such a drastic change. Like if I showed some of the new sets to 3 years younger me, I would almost not believe it.
I'm a little excited by that. I'm sorry that's happening. But I want tools. I want more options. I mean, and not so much that I want every single card to be a competitive banger. That's not we haven't in my own efforts, we haven't even begun to like completely explore what's possible. So everybody's focused on, well, in the before times, everyone was focused on combo and combo and combo and combo, and then
Right.
mid range showed up, and then aggro after that, and then the pendulum swung back to combo. So like we're having these constant, you know, the machinations are, the pendulum is swinging back and forth, and based on the whim of the crowd and all of that stuff, and new cards being printed, like I'm constantly going like I don't want to brew any new commanders. There's not to say there isn't a lot of new commanders that speak to me, like Tor is probably the newest one that was like, man,
The pingy guy, right?
yeah, it's like, man, I gotta brew this thing. But the problem is everybody jumps in because it's the new hot thing, and they do their brews. So I waited probably a good 5 6 months to start brewing my own list, because I wanted everything to die down, and I didn't want to be necessarily influenced by all of the chatter, because
Oh, I get that.
I don't want, I'm not suggesting that their ideas aren't good. That's not what I'm suggesting. What I'm suggesting is I want the option to insert, like for Quintorius is a good example of this. Quintorius was, all the first builds of that was a first day of class um, retriever build, right? So they were trying
Right.
to get value and all that stuff, and then combo off. Uh, Once I started studying the card without all the noise, right, I started realizing that maybe there's some value plan. Like maybe there isn't an infinite combo that fits into this deck, and maybe it's just better off as a value plan where you're only generating consistently, though, one or two tokens on top of, the game plan to, just, there's nothing, a 4/1 or not 4/1, a 4/2 spirit token is not something to scoff at. So
Definitely, yeah.
so yeah, I forget what how this all turned, but like, yeah, I like looking. Oh, okay. So fire design.
Yeah.
I like the new cards for the sole purpose of looking back at old commanders and seeing how these new commons give
Right.
new life to previously disregarded commanders.
In that sense, I agree. I really like when a card does something new.
Mhm.
I'm a big fan of that. And then like when you're looking at something and they, I don't know, recently they printed some soldiers. I already had a soldier deck. But if I didn't, that might be the point where like, okay, we reached the critical point. Now we have enough cards to make this work. We can finally make this deck. So on that sense, I definitely agree. I have an issue with those moments when they just do the thing you had before, but stronger. Like they attach a +1/+1. You also draw a card, something like that. And any card that you obviously put in a deck because it's the best thing takes away from the creative process of it, building the deck. So that's my only issue with it. But yeah, if
So
it's just new,
they've already printed the perfect green card. They just have to make it cheaper. Scale the heights.
oh, I don't think I run that in any of my decks. I
So
just
every
it's
time I see
very
it,
often it's on the
yeah,
list,
it does
but it
everything that I want it to do. The only problem is it's at 3 mana, which it'll never stay common and remain that. I mean, you could probably make it a dual color, and you know,
you can make it a 2-color card. You could make it 4 cost, but it costs you less with a restriction. Like I can see ways to make this a common for sure, even if it's costing less.
so yeah, that card does everything that I want it to do, and every chance I get to play it, I play it.
Yeah, I had to cut it recently from a proliferate list because it's 5 colors and it just didn't have the space.
Yep. Wait, 5 color.
I built
I
I just
yeah.
in the last 3 days I built 4 decks and 2 of them are 5 color.
So
Like I
I'm
just
due. My first okay, so my first PDH deck that I played before I was actually in the format, I actually made it as a low powered restricted commander deck that I played at commander tables. Was a Grixis Dreadwing deck that was infect. And my first deck that I built with the intention of playing competitively was Paragon of Amnesia. So
Yeah.
so I really had fun with that deck because, as a guy who likes tools, being in 5 colors, you have all the options. So being able to
You have
grow,
all the tools, yeah.
yeah, being able to grow your commander to deal commander damage, being able to, play whatever types of combos that you wanted to play in the deck, have the best removal, have the best counter spells. Like, it was so great. And hell, I halfway think it'll be better now because of all the dual lands that have been printed in the last couple of years.
Actually, that is one of the reasons I built the third deck. So I had already a 5-card artifacts because I wanted to play all the bridges.
Yep.
I built the proliferate with the duels that have the types because you can just fetch them out.
Yep.
And I then built a third deck with all the gates because these are basically the 3 ways you can build a 5-color mana base. And I just wanted to try out all 3, have different angles that work for each of them.
They got the treasure gates now, and then they got the
gate that gives +X+X. Like our play group, we started playing the gates in almost any deck. Like some of the monocolored decks run those. Just because they you have a land, it comes in untapped. The other one filters, makes treasures if you don't use your counterspell or whatever.
Yeah.
And if it's a 3-color deck, it can reasonably give it +4, +5, something like that. And if you're not running green, the navigation orb, I think it is, 5 mana cultivate is still totally fine, especially if it gets you those lands.
See, now my wheels are turning from a competitive sense, right? Because I'm a huge fan of Trinket Mage, and I do everything that I can if I'm playing blue, which is probably 60% of the time. If I'm playing blue and I can afford a Trinket Mage, then I start building out packages for Trinket Mage. So looking at like a 5-color, of course, now I have flicker options, and Trinket Mage is like ramp. So it's like, okay, go get my dual artifact duels and bring them into play. But then now you're forced. Now see, we're doing some deck building live. See, now it's like, okay, so if you do the gates, now you have actual like commander options because you have gates, commander related options. Whereas like Trinket Mage. Now, to be fair, when I build a 5-color deck, it's only really 3 colors.
I mean, that's fair, but I think those 2 decks also have a very tiny bit of red. I could have cut red, but I didn't have to. I'm just mildly confused. How does Trinket Mage relate to the gates? Because the navigation.
I'm talking about the artifact land. So, if I'm playing a 5-color deck and I want to use Trinket Mage as a ramp package, then I have to defer to the artifact lands. Otherwise, like if you're playing Trinket Mage is still good, but you're limited in your number. It's trying to maximize your options with Trinket Mage. So I think it's still going to be a gates deck with Trinket Mage, but you just can't ramp.
You could just have the OG artifact lands because they come in untapped anyway, so you don't run too many tapped lands. You just need to avoid basic red land ramp then.
So you don't like tap lands?
I do. I mean, I just confessed like these decks run like 15, 20 tap lands, but I don't want to run 35. So like that it has to be a little like it's ideal if your starting hand is like 1 or 2 tapped lands and at least 1 untapped one, so you can sequence nicely and at least start curving out at some point.
Sweet. I'm glad. I'm glad that other players think about land drops from that perspective, because we definitely have some people in the community like I can't stand tap lands. I want to go fast, and I want it to happen right now, right? So I'll play like 1 or 2 in a list, but I'll rarely climb above 1 or 2, especially like if I'm in 2-color, like 1 or 2, and those will vary based on whether or not that's Trinket Mage eligible or not Trinket Mage eligible. Like I'm thinking about all of these things. So yeah.
You have the fetchable ones. You have Path of Ancestry. Let me think. I think those are the mostly important ones. If you're running gates, you have all the gate things, which are Yeah, I don't know. I think I couldn't run just two. I've started to run less than I did. Like in the very beginning, I ran all the tab lands. I just wanted to have my colors at all times.
Yep.
But the format definitely sped up a bit. At least in our playgroup it did. So there was just not the option to do so.
I'd be curious. So if you do, or if when you do start making content, are you interested in any like gameplay data or anything like that? Like, are you interested in? Because that's one of the things that I really enjoy doing, because I want, like, on the subject of turns, we just broke in the month of December the 10 turn barrier. So now our December games
Oh, you mean like
average,
the average? Yeah.
yeah. So our games average 9.9 turns per game, which I feel is significant because that helps inform meta choices, right? That's
I feel like I'm not there yet, and I'm not sure if I will ever get there because I'm not thinking about it in a competitive sense.
Yep.
Like I just started building decks that have creatures to punch things rather than killing you with Muldrifter beats once you can't do anything against my value anymore.
Muldrifter beats.
So yeah, I just recently got into the idea of actually winning at all. And sometimes when I build a combo deck, I like to do the puzzle of what is the fastest way I can do this. If I get the ideal 7, but in my experience, it's too random, and like because you have 100 cards, and even with high redundancy, it doesn't. I wouldn't know how to calculate my expected turn to win.
That's fair. I was thinking more from the perspective of okay, so admittedly, one of my goals is to get this format into the LGS. And
right, yeah.
whether or not that's on Commander Night, which is casual, low key, there's no time limits, that kind of stuff, to actually being featured for FNM, 90-minute rounds, that sort of deal. So
yeah,
from my perspective, I'm trying to inform and educate on what is possible and or like expected from this type of gameplay, Pauper Commander gameplay, whether it's competitive or not. So a lot of things that disparage, a lot of people who disparage our format talk about these clogged board states and things of that nature. And I do recall in the beginning of the CPDH meta, we had like 4 and 5 hour games, and nobody's going to buy that, So
I would, but continue.
Well, no competitive player is going to buy that. So I became heavily interested in marketing the format from a temporal perspective, because competitive players are all about optimizing and efficiency and their time and all that. Time is money, that sort of thing. So I guess trying to look at time from the perspective of a casual player and trying to find meaning and all of that, that's essentially what I was. Now, what would be an appropriate metric for stimulating regular, like, casual playing for Pauper Commander? Because to say fun is, but how do you measure fun?
I'm mildly confused by the term metric in that context, because it's I'm not sure if it's
something
like it's not like it's not like an exact science necessarily. What I feel like, especially for the casual crowd, might be a good selling point, or at least it's the best selling point for me, is that the power level is they're closer to each other. In Top ADH, if you build a weak deck and you decide to build Griffin Tribal, you at least have 3 power flyers. So you might beat the combo deck before they do their thing.
Yep.
and it's like there's not such a big gap, so it's much easier to have a balanced game. Whereas in regular EDH, if you have a competitive EDH deck and someone's playing an old precon, because the new precons nowadays also kind of strong sometimes, but like the gap is a lot stronger. And if you miss a turn or you miss a land drop, you might be screwed for the rest of the game. And in pop EDH, it's much easier to let everyone have a good time, as long as like and if everyone is intending to have a competitive game, they can say that. But like if someone says, "Oh yeah, I think my deck is chill," it's actually chill. It's not going to kill you on turn 3.
Sweet. So I regrettably just looked down at the timer, and we've got about 5 minutes. So it feels like so we have never talked face to face before. We've only interacted in the RC Discord, and it feels like I've been chatting with an old friend. I can't speak for you, but that's
oh yeah, that's nice.
That's
likewise.
Yeah. So in this last little bit, is there anything that we didn't cover that you would like to speak to? We can always rehash some common backgrounds goodness if you like. You know, that's always a popular.
I actually thought about this in the past few days. I was one of the people who was a bit on the fence, and I wanted to play them, of course, but I also voted against having common backgrounds in the command zone. And I actually figured you might ask me this, so I tried to like come up with a scenario and like broaden out to make it really understandable.
Yeah.
And I kind of convinced myself that maybe common backgrounds should be legal. So I'm now like kind of undecided. I'm not like, oh yeah, definitely there should be. I'm just like,
Quick,
maybe I would have
cut the tape. Cut the So as speaking for our dear friend Alk, who is not here, he would be very proud of you.
Oh, thank you. And the worst thing is, I think someone even made the point, but it was just washed away in the conversation. The most important reasoning for me was that because backgrounds themselves don't have the rules text that they can be in your command zone, but rather the
commander itself.
The commander itself conjures it, so to speak, into the command zone. That's why it has to be uncommon. Because if they would print a common with the text, "This can be your commander," I believe we would allow it.
Yeah, that's
and that was my original reasoning. I then made a step further and was like, well, they have these enchantments which usually can't be your commander, and they still work in regular EDH, but they also added the legendary subtype. So this is why I'm not like jumping back over the fence, but I leaned a bit closer because I realized that these are enchantments. And yeah, it's an interesting topic, but
oh, go ahead.
Yeah, after playing it with it a bit, I feel like I prefer it this way, just because the common ones are stronger. Yeah, weirdly enough, because the common ones are stronger, and it's like it's not like everyone is playing the strong ones, and it kind of gets stale in this sense, and it's still a very interesting inclusion in your deck, and that is not a decision I would ever want to have to make. Like, this is just like, this is not what informed my decision, but like having to decide like, oh, do I put this in the command zone or just put it in the 99 and be able to play something else? Like, that doesn't have to happen right now.
In fairness, though, I think WotC is one card away or one cycle away in whatever new set of changing the consequential fallout. Like, for example, if they did say, if they did have some sort of typing that allowed for common to interact with the command zone, that would retroactively have some sort of effect, I believe. So I can't think of. I'm not rule smart or any of that.
I mean, hey, for regular EDH, remember companions? That was fun. They had to errata the whole mechanic, like, and I feel like the way they named it is ironically feels like foreshadowing, because they are literally playing with fire. and it's just a matter of time until something. And I really hope it breaks in a way that is fun, and not a mess that we, not a mess that we cannot clean up. Because so far we tried to be kind of in line with the EDH rules committee and have like keep our notions in mind as well. But I really hope I won't have to vote for something because I believe it is true, even though it breaks the format. If that happens, maybe I change as a person. Who knows? But I just hope they don't break it too hard.
Well, it's not the thing that we do is not easy, and it's not as the saying goes, it's not a picnic. We don't all get together and get our escargot forks and we try to come well armed. We try to be thoughtful, insightful, and convincing. That's one of the things, we try to exert our influence on each other's in those ways. Some are more rigid than others from the start. So yeah, it's a group of players, right? A group of Magic players. So right on. Okay.
Sweet.
There's an hour. My man,
all right.
I am so glad. We ought to, if you don't mind, I've already proven I'm in the habit of revisiting visitors, so I'd love to have you back.
I'm glad to come back for sure.
Especially once you get your content going, then we can talk about that, and hopefully we can get you some.
Oh, definitely. Then maybe I can have you on if I manage to get like a camera gameplay setup going. Why not?
Sweet. I gotta build some casual decks. What does that look like?
I can give you some pointers. It's maybe your decks are casual after all. It's just we'll see.
So bonus tip at the end of the recording, right? So if you've watched the first hour of this and you've made it this far, Ryan and I have discovered that there's only one real barrier, only one, between casual and competitive, and that's intent.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, that intent, it cascades from there. Aha, magic term. It cascades from there in the fact that your intent to win, or your intention to have fun, card choices, game actions, all of that precipitates from that focal point. But by and large, like where there is a clear difference in power, e.g., the modern Moxen of Mox Opal and that sort of stuff in regular Commander, there's a definite difference of inclusion or exclusion of those in your deck or power level. We don't have that definitive break in between metas that they have. So you could possibly be playing some fringe CEDH or CPDH decks, and they would be right at home at a regular Pauper Commander table. So your idea has legs. Yeah.
If I can go on a mild tangent here to give an idea of how to build a casual deck, if you're not familiar, in the past few years, they trained artificial intelligence to play chess, to play Go, these games that have not been cracked by AI yet, and they managed to beat the top players. And what they realized when they were watching the games and analyzing the games was that most of these AIs, once they played millions of games, chose to do game actions that reduce the choices your opponent has, reduce the options that your opponent has. And that is a very competitive thing to do. That is not a very casual thing to do. Because most people that start out playing, they want to do their thing. They want to have fun. So if you don't know, if you want to play strong decks and you don't know where to tweak, this might be the first thing to tweak. Like, of course, run some interaction. Be able to stop someone if they are going to kill you immediately. But
play board
yeah. But like, do give a bit more room for people to have their things and do their things. And I think you're good.
Sweet. All right. That's a good place to end. Of course, Plant's going to give me his deck list for
Yes.
his commander that he gets
Sandstone
into.
Oracle.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll see that in the description below. When he gets his operation up and running in the coming months, we'll make sure to pay him a visit and drive some traffic and stuff like that. Until then, I know you're part of the home base. You're part of the management server and stuff. He just joined the Tryhard server today, although I don't know if he'll stick around, but I hope that he will.
I'll be there.
Sweet. So if you want to interact with him, you can interact with him in those spaces. Are you on Reddit or Twitter or anything like that?
Not currently. So my ingenious plan is that on Twitch, I'll be planned on Twitch. On Reddit, I'll be planned on Reddit. On Twitter, I'll be planned on Twitter, because those names probably are not taken because they sound horrible. I don't know if I'll stick with it, but that is my initial idea.
Sweet.
Yeah.
So as we update our identity, I'll make sure that I update. Right on. Well, thank you again, sir. Appreciate
Thank you for having me.
And we'll catch all of you folks out there on the interwebs on the flip side.